This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Liberal and decent would agree to the same law of peoples. A society of peoples is reasonably just in that its members follow the reasonably just law of peoples in their mutual relations. An aim of Part 2 is to show that there may exist decent non-liberal peoples who accept and follow the law of peoples. To this end, I give an imagined example of a non-liberal Muslim people I call Kazakhstan. This people satisfies the criteria for decent hierarchical peoples I set forth. Kazakhstan is not aggressive against other peoples and accepts and follows the law of peoples. It honors and respects human rights, and its basic structure contains a decent consultation hierarchy, the features of which I describe. Part 3 takes up the two kinds of non-ideal theory. One kind deals with conditions of non-compliance, that is, with conditions in which certain regimes refuse to comply with a reasonable law of peoples. These we may call outlaw states, and I discuss what measures other societies, liberal peoples or decent peoples, may justifiably take to defend themselves against them. The other kind of non-ideal theory deals with unfavorable conditions, that is, with the conditions of societies whose historical, social, and economic circumstances make their achieving a well-ordered regime, whether liberal or decent, difficult if not impossible. In regard to these burdened societies, we must ask how far liberal or decent peoples owe a duty of assistance to these societies so that the latter may establish their own reasonably just or decent institutions. The aim of the law of peoples would be fully achieved when all societies have been able to establish either a liberal or a decent regime, however unlikely that may be. 2. This monograph on the law of peoples is neither a treatise nor a textbook on international law. Rather, it is a work that focuses strictly on certain questions connected with whether a realistic utopia is possible and the conditions under which it might obtain. I begin and end with the idea of a realistic utopia. Political philosophy is realistically utopian when it extends what are ordinarily thought of as the limits of practical political possibility. Our hope for the future of our society rests on the belief that the nature of the social world allows reasonably just constitutional democratic societies existing as members of the Society of Peoples. In such a social world, peace and justice would be achieved between liberal and decent peoples both at home and abroad. The idea of this society is realistically utopian in that it depicts an achievable social world that combines political right and justice for all liberal and decent peoples in a society of peoples. Both a theory of justice and political liberalism try to say how a liberal society might be possible. The law of peoples hopes to say how a world society of liberal and decent peoples might be possible. Of course, many would say that it is not possible, and that utopian elements may be a serious defect in a society's political culture. On the contrary, though I would not deny that such elements can be misconceived, I believe the idea of a realistic utopia is essential. Two main ideas motivate the law of peoples. One is that the great evils of human history, unjust war and oppression, religious persecution and the denial of liberty of conscience, starvation and poverty, not to mention genocide and mass murder, follow from political injustice, with its own cruelties and callousness. Here, the idea of political justice is the same as that discussed by political liberalism, out of which the law of peoples is developed. The other main idea, obviously connected with the first, is that once the gravest form of political injustices are eliminated by following just, or at least decent, social policies and establishing just, or at least decent, basic institutions, these great evils will eventually disappear. I connect these ideas to the idea of a realistic utopia. Following Rousseau's opening thought in The Social Contract, I shall assume that his phrase, "men as they are," refers to persons' moral and psychological natures, and how that nature works within a framework of political and social